So till now we have covered from installation of Playwright to trace viewer. Now we will start with the VS Code. We are skipping the CI GitHub actions as we will first complete the entire Playwright, then we will come back to continuous integration with GitHub. Playwright test was specifically created to accommodate the need of end-to-end testing. Playwright supports all modern rendering engines including Chromium, WebKit and Firefox. We can test on Windows, Linux and Mac OS locally or on continuous integration, headless or headed, with native mobile emulation of Google Chrome for Android and mobile Safari. So this we have already covered. Get started by installing Playwright and generating a test to see it in action. Alternatively, we can get started and run using the command line. So for till now, we have been doing that. Install the VS extension from Marketplace, or we can also do it from the extension tabs in VS Code. So this is the extension tab in the for Playwright test of VS Code. Let's install it. In the extensions section, we can see that Playwright test for VS Code is installed. Then we go to the Explorer, open folder. Now we have to enter the path where our Playwright tests are present. So this is the root where Playwright all the files are present, and we have to select this folder. Once this is selected, in the Explorer we can see everything is present. Our test example, configuration, package JSON, package log, GitHub for CI/CD actions, everything is present here. And here in the testing section, we can see that tests are present, which is example.spec.ts. So this is a separate section only for the testing part. And good thing is that if we click on it, we are able to, first of all, we are able to run from here, debug, as well as go to the test. So if we click on it, this is the test, and we are able to run the test directly from this test explorer. Now I will close this TS file. Here we can see that we are able to see all the commands using Control Shift P. So I'm going to press this. Then I have one command called test install Playwright. So by using this command, we are able to install the Playwright. Choose the browser we want to run our tests on. So we are choosing all of them, as well as we are selecting the GitHub actions, and we'll click on OK. So now here we are getting an error or a question mark saying that Playwright config ts already exists, override it, true or false. This is because we are earlier using this in the CLI mode, that is the command line mode, and now we are trying to do with the Visual Studio Code. So we'll go with false. Again, Playwright YML override false. Same for all the files we'll do. So finally Playwright is installed. Now running the test, we can run a single test by clicking the green triangle next to the text block of our run test. So this is test 1. We are able to see a run test. I just click on it. Playwright will run through each line of the test, and when it finishes, we will see the green tick next to your test block as well as the time it took to run the test. So here we are able to see a green tick, and as well as the time. So you see here the green tick and 1.5 seconds. So this is how we are able to simply run the test directly from the Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now we know how to run a test simply from the VS Code. Now the execution that happened earlier was in the headless mode, so we were not able to see the browser. Now we'll check there is a setting to enable browser or to show the browser. We are in the testing side. In this test, Explorer is open. Below that, there is also Playwright option. If we open the Playwright, then there is a option called Show Browser. Now I'm going to enable this. After enabling, I'm going to run the same test again. Now I have to allow this. Now we can see the browser is opened, which is in the Chromium. And I can see that the test passed in 2.2 seconds. Our test is still expect the URL to contain intro. So we don't have any code to close the browser. So this test is passed. We also have an option to close all browsers. So if I click on it, then the Chromium browser is closed as well. The reason why execution happened only in the Chromium browser is that in the Playwright config ts, we have only enabled Chromium, and other browsers such as Firefox, WebKit, others are all commented. View and run all tests. So because in the testing sidebar we are able to view all the tests that are present. Currently we have only example spec ts1 file and which has only one test. But imagine if we have like 20-25 tests, then we will be able to see all of them here. And based on this tick, we are able to see that which test we did not run. So tests that have not run will not have the green check next to them. We can run all tests by clicking on the white triangle as you hover over the test using the sidebar. So this is a simplification provided by the Visual Studio Code. Now the next one is run test on specific browser. The VS Code runner, test runner runs your test on the default browser of Chrome. To run on other or multiple browsers, click the play buttons drop down and choose the option of select default profile and select the browsers you wish to run your tests on. So we get the option to choose the browsers that we want our test to run. What I'll do, I'll go to example Explorer, open the config ts, and then I'll also enable the Firefox and WebKit. So currently Chromium, Firefox, WebKit, all of them should be enabled in this here. Now we see that there is one select configuration option. If I click on it, I can check Chromium, Firefox, WebKit. So right now I have selected Chromium. Execution happened on Chromium. Execution is completed. How do we know that it is success? We see here the green tick and the time 2.3 seconds. Again, I can select Firefox. The execution should start now. So this is Firefox. Again, the execution is success. It took 4.3 seconds. And the last one is WebKit. So this is Chromium. This is what we call as nightly Firefox, and the last one is WebKit. And we can choose the close all browsers to close all three of them. So observe carefully that all of them are closed now. And in this configuration we can choose select default profile, and when we select default profile we are able to select Chromium. So by default the Chromium is the basic browser. And there is last option called select default profile. If I click on it, so initially the Chromium is present, but I can also select Firefox and WebKit and click on OK. So what will happen if I do not use any of the configuration and directly click on run using this white triangle? Then the test execution is started, first on Chromium, After that, it is on the nightly Firefox, and the last one should be the third browser. Which one is it? Yeah, this is WebKit. So this is the configuration that we can change. We are able to run on all three of them. So the next is debugging the test. With the VS Code extension, we can debug the test right in the VS Code to see error messages, create the breakpoints, and live debug our tests. So first one is like error messages. If the test fails in the VS Code, we will see the error message right in the editor showing what was expected, what was received, as well as the complete call log. So we have to make sure that this test fails. So to make the test fail, what I will do, this is the last checkpoint, that the page should have a URL that contains intro. So I will create a new code which should fail. So I'll write my name here. So this should fail, right? So let's try to run here. First one, Chromium. Now we see that I think it should also run, it is still running on the second browser, that is Nightly Firefox. Let the execution complete with all the tests. Yeah. So all three I think got executed and all three have been failed. It says 0 out of 1 test pass and we are getting this red error. Error is expect received to have URL. So expected pattern Akshay and received string does not contain Akshay. So this is the failure. That's what we see, that it will show you the error message right in the editor and tell you what was expected and what we are getting and the complete call log. So this is the call log which contains all the data, and it is showing that earlier tests that we run were all pass, but this test that we run got 3 errors like for each browser. So this is the first, second, third. So we are able to get the entire call log with the expected pattern and received string. Running in a debug mode, to set a breakpoint, click next to the line number where we want the breakpoint to be until a red dot appears. So let's put a breakpoint on line number 14. We just have to go here and click on it. If I right click, I see the option to remove breakpoint, edit breakpoint or disable. So right now this breakpoint is enabled on line number 14. Run the test in debug mode by right clicking the line next to the test you want to run. So this is the test I want to run. I right click on it and click on debug test. Now we are running in the debug mode. A browser window will open and test will run and pause at where the breakpoint is. Browser window has opened and test has paused where the breakpoint is, and now we should be able to debug it. We see multiple options here. First one is like continue, step over, step into. So if there is a function, then we can step into that function to check it. Step over to out of the function, then restart and stop. So the simple one is step over. From line number 14, we went to 15. Here we are able to see the call stack. On the left hand side, there is a variable, so we can see what variables are present. So currently block is get started contains the locator that contains text is equal to get started, and there is a call stack here, loaded scripts, and in the breakpoints we are able to see which breakpoints are enabled. So we have one in example.spec.ts. Down here we can see that this is the debug console running one test using first worker, example spec ds third, which is in the headed mode, running in Chromium, retry 0, so there are no failures, timeout 0, workers 1. So similarly, we can step over again. We are at the last line. Now this will fail because we still have the URL should contain Akshay, which is not true. So I'll just continue the running. If we go back to the testing, here the test results are not yet updated. So once I clicked on continue, so first is failed. One failed chromiums with the chromium example.spec.ts. So this has failed. Now we will check the live debugging. For that, first I will just comment out the await expect to have a URL Akshay. So this I have commented, and I will make one change here that currently we have a page locator that has text is equal to get started. So I will make it to text contains Akshay, which is again a failure one. So we can modify our test right in VS Code while debugging, and Playwright will highlight the selector in the browser. So how we can do that? If I right click, debug the test, first I will put a breakpoint here, line number 11. We know this is a failure, right? Because the page locator with text Akshay does not exist there. Start with debug. So the test can be modified directly in the VS Code. So this is the Chromium. This is the get started part of the code, and this text contains Akshay. Currently it is at here, so I can change it here directly. Get started. Next one is generating test. We already know that CodeGen can be used. This will auto-generate test for you as you perform action in the browser and is a great way to quickly get started. The viewport for the browser window is set to a specific width and height that can be changed, but this width and height of the browser window can be changed via the configuration guide that we'll check later. Record a new test. To record a test, click on record new button from the testing sidebar. So this is the testing sidebar. We are going to click on record new. Recording the Playwright script. This will create test-1 spec.ts file as well as open up a browsing window. This is the browsing window. Note that the browsing window is opened in incognito mode, so we are not able to view our profile or any of the bookmarks. In the browser, go to URL you wish to test and start clicking around. So we can just go to any URL like google.com, accept the cookies, go to text box. Playwright will record our actions and generate a test for us. Once we are done recording, click the cancel button or close the browser window. We can directly close this browser window, or there is a cancel option over here. So we will click on that. Now we see that there is a file created test-1 spec.ts which is present under the tests folder, and we can inspect this file. So first we are importing test and expect. This is the test that is starting. Await page go to google.com. So this is automatically code written for opening google.com. After that, click on accept all cookies. Make sure that the URL contains google.com to have certain URL. Await page get by role. With the so we are getting the page inspecting the element using get by role and clicking on it. So this is for opening the text box. Fill the text box with Playwright and press enter. And finally we are checking if we have certain URL or not, and then we clicked on cancel. So the next one is selector highlighting. As we interact with page, CodeGen will generate the test for us in the newly created file in VS Code that we have seen. When we hover over an element, Playwright will highlight the element and show the selector underneath it. So how does this work? Let me show you. We are in the test1.spec.ts. Go in the testing and click on the record new. It created test-2.spec.ts. If I go to google.com, I will just select this. When we hover over any of the element, for example, this text box, then we get the selector properties such as get by role, combo box, name, and this is for every single element. So the here also Playwright is highlighting the element and showing the selector underneath it. So this gray color we are able to see this element. So here it is also get by role, some button which has name and asterisk. This is also get by text. So this is the get by text property or selector. Now next one is picking a selector. First what we will do is click on record new. Now Chromium will open. Here I will go to google.com again and choose English language. Now back in here there is an option called pick selector. I will click on it. So what this does is that every element we can identify based on a selector, right? So for example, this can be identified by get by role, combo box, name, search. This can be identified by get by role. This is a button and name with Google search. Similarly, if I click on it, if I click on Google search and check back in the VS Code, then here I got this selector. So this simplifies the getting the selector properties very easily, and we can just copy paste the selector and press enter on keyboard to copy the selector into the clipboard and paste anywhere in our code, or we can simply press escape if you want to cancel. So now I am pressing enter and this is my code. I can just use it anywhere and use it with await, page, get by role, and perform a click operation or any operation. So pick selector is very useful tool to get the selector property directly from the page. That was all for getting started with VS Code. If you check in the right side, we have tried everything from run test and show browser to picking a selector. I have only skipped one part, that is record a test from another test. So this I was facing some issues with the VS Code. So I will try to cover this in the next videos. So thanks again for watching this video.